his talk. A true testament to South African aviation excellence, Captain Alewyn brings over 11,600 flight hours. This is probably a month old, so maybe 12,000 hours by now, of experience spanning an impressive portfolio of more than 70 aircraft types. His remarkable career showcases the breadth and depth that defines exceptional aviation. Captain Burger's competitive spirit shines through his recent achievements as the 2024 National Intermediary Aerobatics Champion, demonstrating his mastery of precision flying and aerobatics artistry. His international representation of South Africa reached new heights in 2023 when he competed as a Protea rally pilot in France, securing a bronze medal alongside his teammate, which is here with him tonight, which shall not be mentioned, through exceptional skills and coordination. I wonder if that's the teammate to him. As a grade 2 flight instructor, Captain Burger is passionate about nurturing the next generation of aviators, bringing his wealth of practical experience into the classroom and into the cockpit. His commercial aviation expertise is anchored by his command of a Boeing 737, where his leadership capabilities and technical proficiency have earned him widespread recognition in that organization. Captain Burger's diverse flying background from vintage tailwheel aircraft to modern commercial jets, combined with the competitive achievements and instructional excellence, makes him a truly multifaceted ambassador for South African aviation. As our final speaker of this evening, please the warmest welcome to Captain Alewyn Burger.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for, I can't see you, but I hope you're out there still, for coming tonight. You got to admit that this must be the most beautiful setting to have such an event in this hangar with these magnificent flying machines and helicopters and so forth. I don't have the fancy PowerPoint presentations because I'm a bit of a map guy, and if it goes wrong, it's nothing like paper maps and manual flaps. But so I've got notes though. Yeah, thanks very much for the generous introduction, Frans. What he's basically just trying to say is I've had a hell of a ride so far, and I've been very fortunate to spend time with aviators way more proficient and experienced than I am, and as much as I talk, I sometimes listen, and they've impressed on me. And when David first phoned me, he said, "Would you like to speak?" My immediate inclination was not a chance, because this is not something I'm comfortable doing. But at the same time, I thought it would be very selfish if I don't, because I've sit with, I don't think I have it, but then I realized that I have been gaining a lot of experience over the years, and maybe it is time that I share it and pass it on to the next generation, or even whoever wants to listen. So, I'd like to start off by reading a page out of one of my favorite little, it's not a Bible, don't worry, books ever. I don't know if many of you know the Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach, but if you bear with me, because it kind of summarizes some of the stuff that I'm trying to say. It was morning, and in the new sun sparkled gold across the ripple of a gentle sea. A mile from shore, a fishing boat crumbed the water, and the word for breakfast flock flashed through the air. Till a crowd of 1,000 seagulls came to dodge and fight for bits of food, it was another busy day beginning. But way off alone, out by himself, beyond boat and shore, Jonathan Livingston's seagull was practicing. 100 feet in the sky, he lowered his webbed feet, lifted his beak, and strained to hold a painful, hard-twisting curve through his wings. The curve meant that he would fly slowly, and now he slowed until the wind was a whisper in the face. until the ocean stood still beneath him. He narrowed his eyes in fierce concentration, held his breath, forced one single more inch of a curve, and then his feathers ruffled and he stalled and fell. Seagulls, as you know, never falter and they never stall. To stall in air is for them a disgrace and a dishonor. But Jonathan Livingstone Seagull, unashamed, stretching his wings again in the trembling hard curve, slowing, and stalling once more, was no ordinary bird. Most gulls don't bother to learn more than the simplest facts of flight. How to get from shore to food and back again. For most gulls, it's not flying that matters, but eating. For this gull, though, it was not eating that mattered, but flight. For more than anything else, Jonathan Livingstone Seagull loved to fly. So, with that, anyways, so the regulatory system that we follow and rely on is in many places of the world is supposed to look after us and make us safe. But we can all agree that just because it's legal, like today there was a 40-knot wind over Solari's Pass, to go fly with that with your aeroplane is perfectly legal, but not safe. And just as in the other side of the spectrum, if your license expired yesterday, to fly today would be illegal, but probably not exactly unsafe. So what it boils down to is that we have our matters in our own hands, and we are ultimately responsible for our own well-being. And I'm trying to get, the human factors across. And when we look at with accidents over the years, especially in, aviation itself has only been around for less than 100 years as we know it, technically. But it's the human factors that we want to tap in this evening. I want to talk a little bit about. These human factors, I won't bore you with the details, but in the airline industry, of course, we can look at the core competencies because we're trying to make this tangible. We can talk about human factors down, and this is in the world of Alewyn. So there's people way more experienced and that can quantify these kind of things. But between ICAO and IATA in the year 2000 and onwards, they've really come to pin these things down, and they kind of made it official in 2013. And they've decided on a couple of core competencies. Now, in the airline industry, we're quite well versed with it. But what I want to do this evening is take some of those just as conversation points and see just a few things, because we could carry on forever, or I could in any ways, speaking about these things. But I just want to take on a few of those core competencies and mention a few things that I think is that we could take home. And if maybe one thing sticks tonight, I'd love to think it wasn't a waste of your time. So they've come up with these 9 core competencies, and they are a flight path management manual, which just is a fancy word for flying skills. And the next one is the same thing, a flight path management with automatics, to use your autopilot. For those of you flying more sophisticated aircraft, application of procedures, knowledge, leadership and teamwork, communication, situational awareness, problem solving, decision making, and workload management. So let's dive into this straight away. So as I know, we all have to get some more of Dani's fuselage wine. Well, I do it anyways. When we talk about knowledge, I challenge you that there's actually no excuse, because a good pilot will sit down and learn the books and the regulations and just know your stuff. I'm not saying be a wise ass, because we all know those guys, but just know your stuff. A very good friend of mine and a great pilot. Beautiful noise, by the way. I won't say his name because he's actually quite a modest guy, generally speaking, and I might implicate him. But anyways, the two of us, about 2 years ago, we were sitting in France having a lovely conversation around the World Rally Flying Championships, having a cold beer. Maybe that's the reason why the conversation was flowing so nicely. But we were chatting about the deceleration process on a Boeing 737 and how the thrust reversers work and the auto brake system and crosswinds and very technical in conversation, and without blinking an eye, we switched straight over into the difference between starting a Continental flooded fuel-injected engine versus a Lycoming. And I could see the people sitting with us at the table trying to listen to this conversation, but we've lost them. And Steve says, oh, sorry, I said his name. He has a chuckle, and he says to me, but you know why we've lost them? And I said, no, I don't know. He says, because we've made flying our business, you know. So I challenge you to make flying your business, you know, make it your thing, you know. I just had the fortunate pleasure to teach a guy how to fly a Bonanza. He bought one, and I said to him, you know, Darby, you now signed out on this aircraft and you can fly it. But when somebody comes to me and they ask me about Bonanzas or Beechcraft Bonanzas, I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to say, you know what, you should go speak to Darby, because he's made flying Bonanzas his business. You know? Do that, become proficient, because great pilots make it their business to know their aircraft's technical and performance characteristics. Moving on to application of procedures, you know, these are the kind of things that keep you safe. Your checks keeps you safe. Do not rush your before takeoff checks, and don't do your run-up and then do your before takeoff checks, because no point in checking that the mags are on both and then you go fiddle with checking them, and then there's no point of it. Just be patient and wait. And if I may say, as an instructor, I come across this quite often with renewals and so forth. Do yourself the favor and give yourself the correct answers to your questions. If you are asking yourself, is the blue knob the propeller lever, which is not a pitch lever, it's a propeller lever because it's a CSU in most cases, are you asking maximum RPM for it? Because when they say to me, it's fine, I said, no, it's not fine. It's maximum RPM. Because just now when you take full power, the CSU will limit the RPM to what you've asked it to. So it means you don't have a technical understanding of what you're doing, or do you? So don't give yourself the wrong answer. Same as with the mixture knob, the red one. People tell me, set full reach. I said, okay, fine, at sea level, but should it be always? No, but otherwise it would. So don't just say reach. It should be set for the density altitude. I was reading a Harvard technical manual from the Air Force, and actually they have the answer set for airfield elevation, which I think is a lovely answer. So it kind of shows that kind of stuff as well. Same with your downwind checks. Landing gear might be one of them that comes up if you don't skip it. Flight path management manual, one of my favorite topics of all time, obviously, if you have met me. Flying skills takes practice. You know, I think General Chuck Yeager actually said that there's no such thing as a natural-born pilot. You might have a good eyesight and hand-eye coordination, but at the end of the day, you need coaching, practicing, and experience. And experience will come, but you need to practice and you need to be coached. And I say, aim small, miss small. When you land your aircraft, do you land on the center line or on the runway? Because landing on the runway is not good enough. Land on the center line, you'll land on the runway anyway, so that's good for business. But so challenge yourself to be accurate. Being accurate is very important, because if engineers, I don't know if there's any engineers out here this evening, but if they are inaccurate, it could mean aircraft are unsafe and it could crash. If pilots are inaccurate, they could put the aircraft in an undesirable state or exceed their limitations or get lost, or worst case scenario, crash and die. So in this industry, accuracy is vital for our well-being. And somebody that's accurate can be trusted, because they take their stuff seriously. So be accurate. Don't settle for within 10 knots, or it's good enough, or it's not going to make you. You will not. That core competency is lacking in that sense. This is a sweet one. The probability of survival is equal to the angle of arrival. I've seen these low sort of approaches where oaks come behind the trees there at Stellenbosch, sneaking it in. I'm not talking about that angle. You should be coming in at a 3-degree angle. And if you don't have an ILS, it's easy enough to work out. You take ground speed times 5 and you should get a rate of descent. But coming in at a 3-degree angle allows you, when you close the throttle, well, you better flare because otherwise the angle is not good for the, that thing I spoke about. So, and when you have to have a good flare, you suddenly add the induced drag, which slows you down, and your landings will become way more accurate, top tip. So, don't drag it in, come in at a 3-degree angle, and your landings will be way more accurate. So, we're talking about energy management. People talk about it all the time. I think I spoke with a few people there this evening, and I didn't even mention it, it just sort of came up. And it's incredible after takeoff how we see people trying to get away from the earth like it's about to bite them. You are flying. The aim of flying is to keep missing the earth. Okay? So if you take off and you keep missing the earth, congratulations, you're doing a good job. But it's better to be 5 knots faster and give it back and gain height than be 5 knots too slow, climbing at best angle of a climb, or worst case scenario, slower, and you're about to stall, and now you have to convert the height, the little bit of height that you might have had, back to speed. Nobody does that. So speed and money is what makes aeroplanes fly. Mostly money, but also speed. So make sure you have enough airspeed in the bank after takeoff. Don't exceed the flap limits and don't do beat-ups. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying ensure there's speed in the pocket. When you do a conversion on a new aircraft, which is a wonderful thing to improve your skills. At first you're overwhelmed, and then after a while you come around and the instructor says, yeah, you're competent, and you get signed off. And then you fly. And then some people, that's good enough. But then you really start learning, It takes 50 or even 100 hours if you concentrate. I mean, I've seen guys with 100 hours on type and they really can fly. And other guys done nothing. They're just quite happily bombing along. Make it your business, like earlier, to learn that new aircraft and always improve on your flying skills. Get an aerobatic rating. It's not always easy in this climate we live in to fly aerobatics or to get a rating, but we are putting measures in place at Stellenbosch even to get more people involved in that. It's just a wonderful thing. And then furthermore, competition aerobatics, which is the ultimate challenge in thinking, physical, and, handling the machine and so forth. Rally flying itself is a wonderful way to improve your skills in planning and plotting and your flying skills itself and observation and so forth. And also teamwork. CRM for those that are in two-crew environments. That said, Bob Hoover in one of his videos very famously speaks about when he flies that strike commander that he says many of my former colleagues have killed themselves because they cut their margins too close. But you got to slow that down. You actually got to listen very carefully again. He says cut their margins too close. We all have our limits. So just because I've just told you to go and broaden your horizons, don't exceed your own limitations. Take your time and ensure you do it in a safe manner. All right. Situational awareness. I want to come back to our run-up because this is where you see people. Once they're flying off, you don't see much. But just one of the many topics is when you park your aircraft at the holding point. You do it, the way you park it there, many factors decide on it. I mean, whether there's other aircraft, is there enough space to park it in such a way? Is there, where's your prop wash going to go? Is there visibility that affords you to look at final approach? Where's the sun coming from? And where's the wind coming from? I see a lot of times they ignore everything and they just want to park into a 3-knot wind. Yeah. That tells me your situational awareness is not great. Try and look at everything, and you haven't even gotten airborne yet. Now that you are airborne, ensure that you fly your circuit accurately. Because people that fly accurately are predictable. And when you are predictable, you make it safe for everyone else. If it's a left-hand pattern, for instance, at Cape Winelands, and everyone turns to the left in a left-hand pattern, it's predictable. Now you get one oak turning right out of nowhere. We're like, what is this oak doing now, you know? And it doesn't matter if you've talked on the radio or whatever, just stick to the pattern. Fly your pattern, predict. You get downwind, it carries on forever and ever, and you're like, okay, maybe he's leaving the circuit. Next thing you turn, and he's turning parallel to you. Fly an accurate pattern and be predictable. It helps for everybody's situational awareness. Now that we are going into the summer season, of course, be very mindful of density altitude as it creeps up on us. And then, of course, that just by thinking about stuff, don't ever let the aircraft be where your brain hasn't been 5 minutes before, at least. When it comes to workload management, create more time. Often the problem with looking after your workload in the cockpit is you don't have time. And when you run out of time, you start cramming and you skip stuff. How do we create more time? Well, first of all, by proper preparation in advance. And then next thing about slowing down. And yes, we can slow aircraft down, and we can also slow our thought process down, and we can prioritize what is really important. You know, and visualize your flight in advance so that you know what's coming. So you don't have to deal with things that you haven't seen coming, additional stuff. Little things, when I say prioritize and keep it simple, that's KISS, keep it simple, stupid, you know, is fuel gauges in light aircraft are notoriously bad. But you've got a wristwatch. Work out your fuel in advance and know that you have 2 hours and just look at that, you know, and you're making it much simpler for yourself, and all of a sudden your workload when it comes to your FREEDA checks, how much fuel you have on board, is an easy answer. Oh, we got an hour left or whatever. Well, it should be on the ground in 15 minutes then, but nonetheless. You know, there's one of the guys that do firefighting at Stellenbosch often now and again, Tosh Ross. And we're having a conversation one night, and he said to me, when you're flying around in Victor Mike Charlie conditions, VMC, you know, and on instruments, the stuff that's going to kill you is all outside. The terrain and the clouds and the birds and the other aircraft. So look out there. Why are you in here doing unnecessary things, increasing your workload with stuff that's not important? Enjoy the flying. Look outside. Aviate, navigate, communicate. I mean, we'll come back to the communicate in shortly. And it's also got to do with that, you know, in computers they talk about RAM, that random access memory, short-term memory that you use. We need to keep that RAM open for important stuff. There's no point in us fiddling with GPSs. How far Stellenbosch when you're north of the Bottleray Hills? Flip, man, we all know it's like 7 miles and it's over there. So just leave it. You're increasing your workload for no apparent reason. Problem solving and decision making. I feel strongly that every pilot should develop a memory to absolute perfection. There are programs out there, but Andrew's not here now, but that can help you to develop your memory, whether you're playing puzzles or whatever you do, because a good memory can help you to tap into those kind of things that you need to solve problems. It kind of goes hand in hand with your knowledge then. There are two other high qualities which I think is also very important when it comes to problem solving, and this is you must have a very good and quick judgment, and also in your decisions, and of course a very cool and calm courage to that no peril can shake is super important. When you fly long enough, you'll find, like they say, there's the old saying about rather be down here and wish you were up there than up there and wish you were down there. But if you fly long enough, I'm not going to scare you. I'm just going to say is, if you don't prepare properly, you're going to find yourself up there and wish you were down there and you're not prepared. And if you are prepared well enough, you will find that courage to not be scared. by preparing yourself, and I've been there. And it's wonderful when you can be calm and sort out a problem and make decisions and do what's need to be done. But it's up to you. You need to be the captain of that ship. There's two things you can control, of course, like as you can control your effort and your attitude, and that's basically what I'm trying to get at. It's very important to have a clear head all the time, actually, when you're flying. And sometimes we find ourselves, we had maybe not the greatest landing or something, and I find this in two-crew environments, and the guy's still thinking about this landing and what did he do wrong and what happened in the flight, and we did this and that. And when you are stuck there, you've essentially taken a two-crew aircraft and you've made it a single crew, because you are not with us. And when you are single crew, it's even worse, because who's flying the plane now? Now you are busy, your RAM is running out, thinking about the past. It's important to be able to, I'm not saying just be blasé and forget about what's happened. You can reaccess it later and once you've landed. But when something has happened and you've passed it, move on. Because you got to live in the moment and 5 minutes ahead. It's no point in sticking in the past. Right, now just before I hope I didn't take too much time, but for a few more meanderings of my own, there's no scientific proof of what I'm saying now. It's just, like I say, in the world of Alewyn. I find that to keep you not grounded as in you can't fly, but to keep you level-headed, it's very important to get a mentor. Somebody that you can shoot the breeze with and talk. You don't have to love them, but you need to respect them, at least, at the very least. Talk to somebody that can tell you what you're doing is not good, or what you're doing is great. Be very careful who you choose, because there's a lot of people out there with a lot of opinions, and so be careful who you take your advice from. The question then basically springs from that. Have that conversation with your mentor. What does it mean to be a professional? We all like to think we're professionals, and you can be a professional private pilot. It's just, to be professional is something we strive for. I sometimes get asked this question by whoever, a layman, saying, so how does it feel to have 100 and something odd passengers behind you? It must be quite a responsibility. And if you think that's more of a responsibility than flying solo, I want you to ask yourself that question again, because it shouldn't make a difference. You should really have the self-preservation, presence of mind, to be so focused on what you're doing that it doesn't matter who's with you. And if you have the will to do this properly and live, then of course they're going to be fine. Whether you fly solo or with all these people behind you, it should make no difference. That's what true professionals do. Then you can carry on and say, so who do you fly for? And if you could impress somebody with your flying skills, who would it be? And would they be impressed? Some food for thought. Maybe it's your mentor. When you're doing that perfect circuit or crappy one or nice landing, ask yourself, would they be impressed? Because often we might be doing something and we think it's fun, but then afterwards if you ask yourself, would Gideon have been impressed with me there? Then I say to myself, yeah, it may be sloppy or not. So keep yourself together. If you want to exceed in your career, give more than what you take. Maybe it's just life advice, but I have found that giving is a great gift, and it always comes back to you. You just keep bowling, and eventually you're going to find the wickets. So just keep doing what you're doing. If somebody's pushing a plane to a hangar and they need a hand, they always need a hand. Go help. Maybe you make a friend for that matter. We're all in this aviation community. It's a small community. We need to look after itself, and that's a great way to exceed. Some of us are in the privileged position that we have gained some experience. Remember when you were younger, or maybe more beautiful and whatever, but with less experience, and you were hoping that some dude or dudess with more experience and somebody cool would just talk to you, shoot the breeze with you, and you gain experience from them. Don't forget that. be that person, speak to the students, make an impression, and so give back, what I'm trying to say. I think Andrew's petition not here, but you were talking earlier about when you stagnate and life comes to a little bit of a, you're not sure what to do next and so forth. Do something hard. You've done your comm, which was pretty hard, and running a marathon is pretty hard, but those things that take time and that's hard is probably the most gratifying things you can do. For those of you who haven't done an instructor's rating that's got commercial pilot's license, South Africa is desperate for instructors, good instructors with experience. So I urge you to do your instructor's rating. When you say to me, oh, it's too much time, whatever, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. So just start, just chip away at it, write the exam, do it, because it's important that we give back to the general aviation industry. And then when you do become an instructor, keep you cool and be patient. Another little something to think about is when we're flying in, often as for fun flying in general aviation, we don't fly in instruments, yet we have these very nice EFIS. We just looked at a Bonanza back here with G1000 Garmins, and it's so easy to get in these services to get sucked into that screens when, like Tosh said, the dangers are all outside. So don't get stuck into those screens when you should be looking outside. Be humble. There's no old, bold pilots, the saying. There's old pilots and bold pilots, but no old, bold pilots. Frans said about some of the ratings I've got, and I've been privileged to fly lots of aircraft, but I haven't seen an aircraft that can read that file copy of mine. So when you're in that aeroplane, the most important aeroplane you fly is the one you're sitting in. It doesn't care what you've flown before and what you've done. You need to respect the machine that you're in, and that's the important thing. So focus on what you are doing. I don't want to hear about, I have flown this, yeah, but in that airplane we do it like that. Be present in the plane you are flying. Yeah, that's what I said there. What else have I got here for you? Look after your power plant and your airframe. Yeah, learn to have mechanical sympathy. When you look after your machine quite often looks after you. We're lucky in the day and age we live in that our machines are pretty reliable. Even when the engines are older than 12 years. They're very, very good. And so it really comes down to the human factors. We are the weakest link in this whole process. And so if we carry on and even look after a machine, then we pretty much have that sorted out. So have that mechanical sympathy on your machine. Taxi a little bit slower. Don't ride your brakes. That kind of thing that I'm talking about. Aviate, navigate, communicate. On that point of communicate, here's one little, I don't know if there's students here today, but anyways, a little bit of housekeeping. I hear these radio checks all the time. And I think myself, we must have the worst radios in this country because everybody has to do a radio check. I mean, when you leave the house in the morning, do you whip out your cell phone and phone the first person on your list and say, I just want to check if my phone's working? No, because it worked last night. And even if you later in the day discover it doesn't work, you're probably not going to die. So when you climb in your aeroplane and it's not snagged, you switch it on the avionics master, you check that it's on the correct frequency, you check the squells, make sure you speak on the correct thing, and off you go. If you then feel the need to do a radio check and nobody answers you, if I catch you then saying you're taxiing out to the holding point, you are in trouble because you've started something that you have to see through. You've now established that your radio doesn't work. Well, you don't know. So best you switch off and go find a handheld. Sorry, okay, you've got it. Right. Radio checks. Planes fly just fine without radios anyways. The radios don't fly fine without airplanes. We live in a world where we've got Google Earth. What a wonderful tool to use when you fly somewhere. to check out the airfield, plan your joining procedure, see other landmarks that is around it, to line yourself up, because the GPS is also only that good. And if you're looking at the GPS to find the place in the last 2 or 3 miles, again, your head's inside when it should be outside. Find those ground features. Use Google Earth to your advantage. I use it all the time. I even measure the runway because I don't trust people. It works great. I'll skip a few of these things, but oh yeah, this one's a good one. Rash is bad, especially hangar rash. So when you get a chance to fly a light aircraft, open the hangar doors all the way, because I don't know when last you've had to replace a nav light. $78. It's not funny. It's always funny. It's funny how just the nav light catches. The importance of a proper pre-flight is super important, because when you're flying along and you hear something, or what is that? Because we hear noises when we fly along. Or not in your head always, but sometimes there's that too. But make sure your own fuel caps are closed. I saw somebody the other day asking a refueler, please put a bottle of oil in the plane. I'm like, what? You let another, no. You go and put your own oil in, ensure the dipstick is closed correctly, and close the flap. Because when you start losing oil pressure, you mustn't wonder whether that thing is on properly. You must know it's on properly because you put it on. Okay. Little bit of other, just general, again, but Andrew's not here, but exercise, go for a swim, cycle, go for a jog. We forget that our medical is super important. France says we got to see this 25 or 30 years through, so best we look after ourselves before AI take over. Until then, well, these planes ain't going to fly themselves. Wear sunscreen. There's a flippin' cool video about that actually on YouTube. Go look it up. But it's true, because flying hasn't been around for very long. I see guys now finishing their careers. Flying as we know it, especially commercial flying and flying as a career pilot, we don't know the effects of the sun on us. So best just put the sunscreen on and we look pretty for our wives when we're older. Maybe they'll keep us. Last but not least, wear the correct shoes for flying. We don't go out there and put ski gloves on when we fly airplanes because we won't be able to feel what we do. So there's no point in going to put boots on when we fly our airplane. It can make such a difference wearing the correct clothing and shoes for flying. Dress up. My friend Gideon says, dress up for your airplane. Sounds funny, but when you go and fly a 737 or your King Air, you dress up as a commercial pilot and it puts you in the right state of mind. If you fly an ex-military warbird, you put your overall on. When you fly open cockpit airplane, you put your leather jacket on. It puts you in the right state of mind and it prepares you for the flight. In closing, I want to just read one last paragraph from my favorite little book here. And I'll let you be. Then we can drink more of Donnie's wine, even though Andrew says we mustn't drink too much. They are saying in the flock that if you are not the son of the great the gull himself, Fletcher told Jonathan one morning after advanced speed practice, then you are 1,000 years ahead of your time. Jonathan sighed. The price of being misunderstood, he thought. They call you devil or they call you God. What do you think, Fletch? Are we ahead of our time? A long silence. Well, this kind of flying has always been here to be learned by anyone who wanted to discover it. That's got nothing to do with time. We're ahead of the fashion, maybe. Ahead of way most gulls fly. That's something, Jonathan said, rolling to glide inverted for a while. That's not half as bad as being ahead of our time. Thank you very much.